Since Terastallization is such a cool gimmick that I enjoy so much, what if every generation of Pokemon had Terastallization? He's doing it again! We got Mega Evolution, we got Dynamax, we got Z-moves, and most recently in Gen 9, we got Terastallization. Terastallization was a really fun way to add complexity to these gym battles and trainer battles because it was just fun to not know whether or not your opponent was going to Terastallize into a completely different type that was probably going to KO you in one move, or is going to completely make whatever attack you were going to do absolutely useless. There was a lot of strategy and thinking behind Terastallization, and I will always appreciate in Scarlet and Violet that at least its gimmick was really solid. As for that frame rate, well, it's not as strong. But hey, it's kind of fixed now. Now, Scarlet and Violet, you may be troubled, but we love you. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is kind of like that one drunk friend that you go out to the bar with, and they're like, I can handle one more shot. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, Beth, but no. No, you can't. I already made a video like this where I talked about in Generation 1, if we started off all these crazy shenanigans with Pokemon having Terastallization from the jump, what would it have looked like? And now I'm here to do it all over again. I'm back and I'm better, and we're gonna be doing Generation 2, baby. The Johto region has never looked so shimmery and glittering and splendid than it is about to with all this Terastallization across the place. I'm gonna be going through each and every single one of our Johto gym leaders across the board and giving them a new ace Pokemon that would fit if Terastallization were the main gimmick in Gen 2. Here are the rules, because believe it or not, there are actually some rules I have to follow when giving these Pokemon. And with the Gen 2 Pokedex, it's a little limited. Following the rules that were pre-established in Scarlet and Violet with Terastallization for our gym leaders, all of them had a Pokemon that was not of their signature typing, but also fit their general vibe, aesthetic, or something that they had going on with their personality traits, and were also able to learn a move of their signature typing. We saw a lot of interesting combinations happen with this. For example, we saw the beautiful gym leader Tulip using Florges and turning it into a psychic type, and we saw our amazing MC of RIP Rhyme using Toxicity, which is a perfect Pokemon for her, and just giving it the ghost typing. But Terastallization gives you the opportunity to have these pairings and make these combinations of Pokemon and trainer that you wouldn't normally be able to do when you're so, limited by typing. Especially for Generation 2, because Generation 2, these gym leaders need some work, and that's just not even talking about gimmick. That's just talking about in general. Help in what sense, you may ask? Help in the sense of it is no secret that the Gen 2 gym leaders don't really use Gen 2 Pokemon. It just seems like a missed opportunity. So that's why another rule that I'm going to be doing is exactly what I did in the first video as well, in that all of these new ace Pokemon must and have to come from the Johto Gen 2 Pokedex, specifically Pokemon that were introduced in Generation 2. At the end of it, I found a Pokemon for each and every one of them. Kinda. But before we go ahead and dive on into some exciting Terastallization, make sure to go down below, hit that like button, and subscribe to the channel to see more content just like this if you are a gamer geek with a Y and want to hang out, sip some iced coffee, and just talk all nerdy news, then girl, you're in the right place. Starting off with our very first gym leader in Violet City, we have to talk about Falkner. Now, Falkner was very hard to try and find a Johto Pokemon to give him as his new ace. Falkner is one of those gym leaders where it's kind of pre-established that he really only uses Pokemon of his type and wouldn't really be interested in using Pokemon who are not of the flying type. And I'm like, Falkner, why'd you have to make this so difficult for me? I'm just trying to help you out here. So not only did I have to find a Pokemon that was not a flying type, but I tried to get something that would fit the general vibe that Falkner would enjoy, which is kind of hard to do with the Gen 2 Pokedex. There's not a lot of Pokemon that have wings and can partially fly that are not flying type. So the only Pokemon that I could really find that kind of fit his general vibe at the same time as being flying type-ish was Dunsparce. Now hear me out on this one. I looked it up, and Dunsparce may not be able to fly, but it does have wings and it can slightly hover off the ground for brief periods of time. So I think that it would be a great message to give a Pokemon like Dunsparce to Falkner, who just started becoming a gym leader. He got all these Pokemon that he's using from his dad, who used to be the old gym leader, and now he's the new gym leader. So Dunsparce being able to barely fly, just starting out fledgling, I don't know, just that type of energy, that type of vibe. It all makes sense in my head. It might sound crazy now that I'm saying it, but it made sense in my head. That, and I literally could not find another Pokemon that fit his vibe. I did think about giving him a bell Bellsprout because Bellsprout, the Sprout Tower, that being in the same city, but it just didn't feel right. What also wasn't helping this case is that the only flying type move that Dunsparce can actually learn is Roost. So it's technically a flying type move, so it does count. So I don't know, y'all. This was just the best Pokemon that I could think of looking at the decks, but if you can think of a better new ace Pokemon for Terastallizing for Falkner to use other than Dunsparce, absolutely let me know down in the comment section below, because I would love to hear y'all suggestions and what Pokemon you think would work better. I also say this because I happened to pick Dunsparce for my next gym leader as well. I can't help that it was also a good fit. Next up, our gym leader is Bugsy. Y'all know him, y'all love him. Alright, I picked Dunsparce for Bugsy as well because this thing is very insect-like. This thing looks like a bug, and Bugsy is another one of those trainers of, oh, I only want to use bug-type Pokemon. Why are there so many people who are so limited and closed-minded? Y'all, we live in the world of Pokemon, okay? You can do whatever you want. Well, maybe not do whatever you want. That's how people like Team Rocket exist, so maybe don't do that. But, you know, you can use whatever Pokemon you want. Why are you limiting yourself? So Bugsy, being a person who enjoys bug-type Pokemon or bug-like Pokemon, I thought that Dunsparce was a great idea. Is this me just hyping up Dunsparce because I think Dunsparce is actually a really fun and cute Pokemon? Yeah, I love me some Dunsparce. It's a really funny, memeable Pokemon, and as y'all know, I love the goof. I encourage it. My life is essentially the Goofy movie. So yes, I'm a fan of Dunsparce. However, I do genuinely believe that Dunsparce is a great pick for Bugsy as well because of his affinity for bug-type Pokemon. Dunsparce is able to learn Pounce and Skitter Smack, which are both great ideas for bug-type moves for a second gym battle. If I had to pick between Falkner and Bugsy, which one I prefer Dunsparce to be with, I think I prefer it for Bugsy. I think it fits a little bit more. I also like that it's an attacking move that is able to learn for bug-type instead of Roost for the flying. So when I'm saying for y'all to comment an idea for Falkner, I absolutely mean it, because I think that Dunsparce fits a lot better with Bugsy than it does with Falkner. But I'm still picking it for both, because genuinely there were not a lot of great options. We're picking what we have to work with in this Gen 2 Pokedex, y'all. I mean, there's a reason that they made a bunch of new evolutions for these Pokemon. They were kinda scrungling. Moving on to the demon herself, we have to talk about Whitney. Am I terrified of Whitney? Yes, I am. I don't think I'll ever recover from my childhood trauma that I received from battling Whitney for the very first time. That all being said, I think that we all know that Whitney, if she were to come out in a later generation, would pretty much be a fairy type gym leader as opposed to a normal one. So a lot of the Pokemon I was looking at were Pokemon that gained the fairy type later on, because I think it's genuinely what they would have done. And I actually found two choices that kind of fit with this. My first choice that I picked for Whitney was Granbull, a Pokemon that I actually think would very well fit in her gym, and let me tell you why. First of all, there's a lot of Pokemon trainers inside her gym that use Snubbull because it's actually considered to be quite the cute Pokemon. Believe it or not. But look at that face. And Granbull, just being the evolved form of it, actually is quite fitting. Granbull also being the fairy type helps, and also the biggest reason that I picked Granbull, aside from all of that, is it's a menace, just like Whitney. I think that Granbull would be a very fitting team member for Whitney. It's able to learn normal type moves like Headbutt and Body Slam, so if you wanted to keep the normal theming, you absolutely could, because it can still learn normal type moves. So that like menacing, terrifying, ruined my whole childhood, like that kind of vibe that Whitney brings, I feel like Granbull could do that. But if that's not the vibe you're going for, you want to go for like an actually normal team member that's not based on fear, I also picked Togetic as a team member because, again, is a normal type Pokemon that became fairy, so I feel like it would be very fitting. Whitney enjoys cute Pokemon. Togepi was a massive Pokemon for Generation 2, probably one of the mascot Pokemon for Generation 2 that we all think of. But I feel like Togetic sometimes falls to the wayside. People just don't think about Togetic a lot, and so I think this would be a really cute way to incorporate it and just give it a little bit more attention. And also, it can learn Metronome, so it can learn some normal type moves as well, so I think Togetic would be a great idea just to showcase the evolution line a little bit more. But hey, I mean, Togetic, Granbull, I'm really here for either choice. I actually kind of love how much I'm terrified of Whitney. Like, I think it's kind of amazing. I love it. She's probably one of the most iconic gym leaders of the generation. Moving right on along to Morty, I was doing some research into Morty and what exactly type of Pokemon trainer he is, because I didn't really remember a lot about him other than his gym itself. And one of his descriptions was they called him the Mystic Seer of the Future. And with that, my brain cogs, they went a-turnin', because I was thinking of a perfect Pokemon for someone who's called a Mystic Seer of the Future that is not a Ghost-type Pokemon. Because let's be real, if we're looking at Ghost-type Pokemon, thank God we're not working with them, because there are so many to choose from. The Pokemon that I want to give Morty that I feel like would fit his vibe perfectly is Xatu. Xatu can see the future and is actually a very mysterious Pokemon. It just has that kind of like staring into the distance kind of ominous vibe that I feel like could fit in really well with a ghost type trainer. Xatu is also able to learn moves like Nightshade or Shadow Ball depending on how strong of a move you actually want to give it by the 4th gym. Also, with a city like Ecruteak that is so rich in history and lore, it would be kind of cool to have a Pokemon like Xatu that can see the future and do all these mystical things living there and maybe having some status in the city, like everybody knowing like, oh, Morty, Xatu had a vision today. Like, I don't know, like, I can see it. I could see it. Moving on to our Cianwood City gym leader, Chuck. I had 2 Pokemon in mind, one of which is kind of a normal choice and one is a completely out there and silly choice, but I'm kind of obsessed with it. Just to get the normal choice out of the way, the Pokemon that I thought of first was Donphan. I think that Donphan is a very underutilized Pokemon. I was so happy in Generation 9, speaking of Terastallization, that Donphan got not 1, but 2 different Paradox forms with Iron Treads and Great Tusk. Donphan is a fantastic Pokemon, and I'm so happy to see it getting all the love and attention that it so rightfully deserves. Donphan's Pokedex descriptions also say how tough of a hide and skin it has, and so I think as a battling partner, it would be really fun to see for a fighting type trainer using a Pokemon like Donphan and kind of training because it is so tough. Donphan also can learn Body Press, which would be a really cool and interesting move to be using by the 5th gym. Donphan aside as my normal choice. I don't love Donphan any less, but however, I was doing research for this video, looking through the whole Pokedex and such, you know, like I do, and I came across a Pokemon that I think, funnily enough, would be kind of hilarious to see featured in a gym battle. Now hear me out, hear me out. I picked Wobbuffet. Now hear me out, I have reasons, I promise. Wobbuffet is silly as all hell. I love this Pokemon. I love how much they featured it with Team Rocket, so it is not short on love and attention. This Pokemon has gotten heaps of it. It is so memeable and amazing and lovable. It's great. I think Wobbuffet is perfect for a trainer like Chuck or just fighting type Pokemon trainers in general because this Pokemon is a punching bag. This is the Pokemon that if you hit it, it's always gonna come right back and hit you back 10 times harder. Tell me why a Pokemon like that would not be a great Pokemon for physical training, for fighting type trainers training. I can already see the vision of Chuck doing all this training to just sock Wobbuffet and then it hits him right back, and like it would be really fun and cute. It'd be a really like interesting dynamic to look at. And Wobbuffet already has an iconic fighting type move to where it would fit right in. It learns counter. So I don't know, y'all. I think that Wobbuffet would be a fantastic choice to use for Chuck. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe Donphan would be better because it's the more normal choice. But hey, I'm kind of in love with my Wobbuffet idea. I'm not even gonna lie. Moving on to our next gym leader of Olivine City, which is kind of funny because we passed through it before we get to Cianwood City, but there is plot reasons. Look, I love my girl Jasmine. She cares about Pokemon very deeply. She's beautiful. She's amazing. Everybody loves Jasmine. And honestly, Jasmine was the easiest person to pick a Pokemon from this list for because the game spells it out for you right there in the story. Jasmine literally has a non-steel type Pokemon that she has a very close bond and relationship with that very easily, if you just rewrote some things, could have been her ace Pokemon. Of course, I'm talking about Amphi. Amphi is already right there in charge of the lighthouse, and why couldn't Amphi take slight breaks every now and then to go and help Jasmine with her gym battles? The two already have a great relationship. She cares very deeply for Amphi like it's her own Pokemon, and I think that it'd be really fun to have that as a dynamic, especially since there's already a whole plot line in the story about it. And Ampharos can learn Iron Tail, which is a great steel type move to have. So Jasmine, you kind of spelled it out for me, girl. I didn't really have to work too hard. In fact, Jasmine was the first thing I wrote down when scripting and putting this video together. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing for everyone else, but Jasmine is getting Ampharos. Like, I knew that from the jump. No research required. Next up, we have our Mahogany Town gym leader, which is Pryce. Now, Pryce is somebody that it took me a second to kind of think of what Pokemon I wanted to use for Pryce, because I didn't really know what kind of vibe he gave. Like, obviously, ice, cold, things like that, but I wanted more. I wanted more to work with. And when I started thinking about it, I was like, oh, Pryce is wise beyond his years. And no, I'm not just calling him old. They talk about how wise he is and how much experience he has and how educated he is with battle and all these things. He's lived a long life. That's not me calling him old. Look, if the shoe fits and the cane works, yeah, but my man is old. But what Pokemon from Generation 2 would fit such a wise trainer other than Slowking? Slowking, I think, would be a fantastic partner for Pryce because it has a whole flurry of ice type moves at its disposal. It can learn Ice Punch, it can learn Ice Beam, it can learn Blizzard. It has all these moves that it can use that totally fit the ice type gym. And also Slowking is an intellectual. It's so smart, it's so well put together, and I think that's a great Pokemon for someone like Pryce. It also would be really cool because Slowking is an added evolution for a Gen 1 Pokemon for Slowpoke, and having a Pokemon like that be an ace of a trainer for Gen 2 would have been really cool to see and cool to showcase these new evolutions. Why didn't we do it in the first place? My issues with Generation 2 aside, I still love you, girl. I still love Johto very much and very dearly. I have a lot of fond memories of Gen 2, but these Gen 2 Pokemon, y'all really weren't doing them any favors. So I think this would have been a great opportunity to showcase Slowking, and I think that having a Terra Ice Slowking would have been amazing for Pryce. And now we have finally reached our last gym leader of the Johto region. We got the Dragon Master herself, Clair. Now, Clair was not the easiest to pick a Pokemon for, because you'd think, oh, it's really simple. Let me just pick Gyarados. However, I can't pick Gyarados because Gyarados is a Generation 1 Pokemon. I had to pick a Gen 2 Pokemon that could go with Clair and her dragon breathy vibe. We all know Clair. We all know that she flat out refused to give us a gym badge and we have to go chasing after her into her dragon's lair just to get it from her and rip it out of her hands. We know what type of trainer Clair is, and look, I love the diva. She is amazing, and I think that she's probably one of my favorites of the generation in terms of gym leaders, and is one of the only people whose ace is a Gen 2 Pokemon already, and I love the fact that we got to feature Kingdra. So don't mistake any of this roasting as that I'm coming for Clair, because I have a deep appreciation for the girl. However, if I'm to pick a Pokemon that is not Kingdra, that is going to be replacing her ace Pokemon that would work with this dragon, fiery kind of rage vibe, I'm picking Tyranitar. Would it be crazy because it's a pseudo Pokemon? Yeah, it would be kind of crazy. But at this point, pseudo Pokemon were like not really a thing. We had Tyranitar and we had Dragonite. And Dragonite we didn't really feature at all until the Elite Four. And even in Johto's Elite Four, we still don't feature Tyranitar. And so I think this would be a great place to feature it. That and not a lot of other Pokemon fit Clair's vibe, per se, really, in a dragon-type gym other than Tyranitar. So I, again, had very limited choices. Tyranitar is able to learn Dragon Tail and Dragon Claw, so there are multiple Dragon-type options for Tyranitar, and I just think the general vibe of Tyranitar does actually really fit Clair. Like, I'm not pulling this out of nowhere. I do think that they are a good combination and a good pairing, especially since Blackthorn City is kind of high up in the mountains. There's the route right below it that's all the cliffs and mountainy areas, so it'd be perfectly fitting to have a rock Pokemon like Tyranitar there. So yeah, call me crazy for using a pseudo Pokemon, but hey, I genuinely think Tyranitar is a good choice for her. And there you have it. We went through each and every one of our Generation 2 gym leaders and slapped a new ace Pokemon on their team that they are able to Terastallize with, and I am honestly happy with so many of these choices. Some of my choices were a little here and there. I will acknowledge that, you know, some of them were a little crazy. But as I've already established, working with the Gen 2 Pokedex in this time was kind of like working like you're doing a marathon with a broken ankle. I really do enjoy some of these choices today. I love Granbull for Whitney. I love Wobbuffet for Chuck. I think Amphi for Jasmine is great. I genuinely think that Slowking is awesome for Pryce. But as always, let me know down in the comment section below what y'all thought of my choices. What choices would you have done? And specifically, let me know what y'all would have done for Falkner if not Dunsparce, because girl, I'm still confused. As always, thank y'all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, and I hope to see you in the next video. And remember to let me know if you enjoy these Terastallization videos, because I would love to do it all over again for Generation 3. But if y'all really want some insider scoop, I did kind of already start peeking ahead for Generation 3, and I was already struggling finding a Pokemon for Roxanne. So if that gets you excited, Let me know if I should do a video. I'm already struggling looking up for Pokemon for Roxanne, but we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure it out. Just let me know if you want me to continue. Because y'all know I will. I will never stop ranting about Pokemon. Y'all know that for darn sure. Goodbye.